Welcome to 90210 Universe, a podcast dedicated to showcasing unique, creative, and diverse humans who are making their mark by living their legacies. Visionaries who took and take action daily. We all have a story. Here, we share ours to inspire, move, and empower others. It's okay to face challenges as we all journey through survival, thriving, and succeed in life. So join us as we spotlight rock stars who navigate the roller coasters of life and use their uniqueness to show that if they can do it, so can you. Welcome to the 90210 podcast, a podcast dedicated, as you know, to showcasing unique, creative, and diverse human beings. And that means people who are making a mark by living their legacies today, visionaries who took and who take action every single day. You know, we all have a story. And here we are sharing stories of some of the individuals, stories that inspire, empower, and motivate us. And by the way, it's okay if you face challenges because we all go through journeys, survival, thriving, success, and all the other options. So join us as today we spotlight another rock star in life who will share his version of his story with us. As you will see, it is very unique. And you see him already on the screen if you're looking at this on YouTube. So welcome, Richard George from the Richard George Foundation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie, for that warm introduction to your podcast. I consider it a privilege and an honor to be featured on this wonderful program, which is going viral and global. It's a fantastic community, 90210. So to be considered worthy of having to sit here and have a conversation with you about a topical issue such as living legacies, despite the challenges, and just wanting to give back to humanity is fantastic. And I say thank you.
Wow, you already started by sharing your story. So you happen to right now be in the UK, Great Britain, England, whichever term anybody prefers. Tell us a little bit about you, and then later on, share a little bit about the idea of giving back to humanity. So, what does your life look like? What are the challenges? What drives you? And how are you thriving?
Wow. We've got all day, have we?
Not quite, but okay.
Okay, I'm gonna well, you've introduced me. Yes, I am here in the United Kingdom. My heritage is Africa, Nigerian to be specific, but of course I'm a British citizen. Live in the UK, work in the UK. So on a personal or professional life, I work for Transport for London, and I'm classified, so to speak, as one of the frontline leaders in the customer operations section, and I oversee a strategic business unit with volume of customers, good headcount in terms of staffing levels, and my job is to inspire, motivate, develop them to be able to deliver the vision and values of Transport for London. And I've been doing this job, or I have been with Transport for London for just shy of 30 years now. So this is my 30th anniversary. Yes, I know I don't quite look that old.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I joined when I was a baby. So
Yes, I was
have
telling you, you
grown.
barely could walk, right?
Exactly. So I have grown, immersed myself in the whole ethos, the cultural customs and practices of the organization. So I live and breathe it, and I think that's where I will be until I exit a professional working life, and then I can now pivot into something else that I find very endearing, and that brings me seamlessly into why the Richard George Foundation. The Richard George Foundation was it's born out of my own story.
Mhm.
It is my own personal story because my first degree was back in Africa, Nigeria, and I was just about 48 hours shy of not being able to graduate because my mom, who was my primary financier and sponsor, had lost her business, and it was quite a traumatic period when a gentleman that I was introduced to decided to support me, and I barely submitted my final dissertation. I barely made it. In fact, when I submitted it, my supervisor, Dr. Onoche, at the time, it was wet. But because he had seen my manuscript, he said, "Look, I'll keep it, but I will use your manuscript to grade your final results." And he did, which was very kind of him. And I achieved great success. So at that point, given the pain threshold, the emotions, the trauma, and experiencing pain in my mother, I made a conscious decision that when the time comes, if I am ever opportune, I would love to give back. I would love to give back to humanity. I would love to pay back this kindness, this generosity to someone else who might need it. And of course, being an African, my first thought is very Africa centric. Um, so that's pretty much uh, part of my story. And then the other part was is to do with the fact that I am very much into investing in people, investing in terms of training, in terms of development, and in terms of seeing people grow and fulfill their different aspirations, be it career or personal journey, where they can look back reflectively and say, I did it, and someone was there to see me through, or someone was there to support me. And I've done that with Transport for London over the last 29 years. So it was just kind of carrying over that now into something more purposeful and more meaningful that we can absolutely measure, and is more very, very, like I said, to do with the African context, where I see a lot of uh, vulnerabilities, a lot of inequalities, a lot of imbalances, a lot of lack of opportunities, high levels of unemployment, young persons not being fully engaged. And I just felt it's time for Africa and it's time to give back.
I have a question for you that anybody who ever hears me on the show knows I don't pre-plan questions because it's about the story. So having studied history and also partially parts of African history, I noticed that you say, I'm from Nigeria, I'm Nigerian, and then you say Africa. And as hopefully we all know, Africa is a continent with
That's right.
many different states, countries, many different groups, even, groups, tribes, ethnic get togethers. So, how important, because I've had this conversation with others, how important is it for you to say Africa, Nigeria? Is there a difference, or do you really see it as we need to support Africa?
It's about thinking, it's about acting local and thinking global.
Mhm.
So I act local because I've got to start from a base point, which is Nigeria. That's what I know. That's what I'm familiar with in terms of the practices, the customs, the norms, and the people who volunteer in the foundation, the bulk people
Mhm.
who volunteer in the foundation. And by default, when you talk about Nigeria, you can then look at extrapolating it to say, what does it look like? Nigeria exists within Africa, same people, same race, but of course, you've got geographical boundaries, language differences, culture, and all that, some of which I am not really conversant with. And of course, it means I have to really do a lot of education myself, self learning, unlearning, and relearning to be able to understand the synergies
Yes.
and the alignment in terms of Africa as a continent. It's like speaking about Europe. When we speak Europe,
Mhm.
we speak United Kingdom. If you think about it, UK customs, values, and all that is very, very different um, to what was obtainable in the Spanish culture and the way of life. So it's that kind of dynamics that makes me speak in terms of looking at Nigeria and looking at it from the African perspective. Again, the summary of it is acting local and thinking global.
Mhm. Thank you.
You're
That,
most
that that
welcome.
is the key, right? Everything starts at home.
Yeah.
And thinking about local and home, you are based now in the UK, close to London, and you have a family.
That's right.
That's my understanding. So,
Absolutely.
how do you balance your work that you've been doing and thriving in for 30 years, the foundation, raising a family, and also spending time with your spouse, with parents, grandparents, and so forth? What's the magic?
It's challenging. Um, but when you're driven,
Mhm.
when you're passionate, and when you can see results, um, then the inspiration comes, and sometimes it comes from the strangest of places.
Hmm.
It can come from even the same network of family persons that you described, because you can see their happiness is derived from your success story,
Mhm.
from your journey that you're making, and they want to be part of that journey. But I think um, the common thread of it is communication and effective communication. It's about being able to speak up and speak out about what you're doing and how you're getting on, and ensuring that you know also how to pace yourself in terms of when to stop, when to go. And I think they call it today psychological well-being. So one must create that opportune time and moment for psychological well-being. And I take a lot of that from the relationships I have, both um, um, core valued relationships as well as strategic partners, and what people do, what you do,
Mhm.
what you speak about, Natalie,
Mhm.
in your spiritual transformation podcast shows, and what you talk about life, about humanity, about well-being, and taking care of oneself. I
Mhm.
listen to all of these, and they all help me kind
Yeah.
of put into place practices and take on board some of the tools that I use to ensure I achieve a good balance. And then I am also I also take a lot of although my wife and my kids will tell you they don't see any much benefit to it, I draw a lot of energy from relaxing and watching football. Football is something I am big on. I am a season ticket holder for the Arsenal, so I go to the stadium
Yes.
sometimes to watch football. It takes me 2 hours to travel up, 2 hours to travel down. So these are all good reflective
Yeah.
times and whatever, and I enjoy it. And the success of the team kind of fits into everything I do. When I'm successful at work, whatever I have done at work, I transfer it into my foundation. The
Mhm.
success is in the foundation. When it gives me a good buzz, I put it back into work. So it's quite holistic.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and this is how I balance it. I don't always get it right. Uh, there are some challenging days, but what I do, and I say that to all my team members, when you feel you're having a bad day, switch off from everyone and everything.
Yes.
So that way you do not transfer negative energy.
Uh-huh. That is that is important. Yes. I mean, in energy healing, we're not supposed to have the light come through us if we're
Mm.
not feeling well, because you can
Mhm.
transfer everything.
That's
Um,
right.
Final question before we have to take a little break. The person you mentioned who helped you finish your studies, do you know what has become of that person?
Absolutely, yes. He's a barrister. He practices. He's very close to one of the state governments, and over the years, one has been able to show that level of appreciation. When the foundation was launched in Abuja, we recognized him with an award, a change maker award, because he is part of my story. His
Mhm.
investment created this change in Richard George. So we recognize him, and I've been part of one or two other organizations, and I have also recognized him by nominating him for this type of awards. Obviously, it's not something I want to do forever, but I'm quietly confident he's now fully assured of my deep appreciation. My
Mhm.
family knows the story. My mom, who is still alive, thank God for that, she knows the story, and she every time I go to Nigeria, she's always asking, "I hope he's good." And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's I have done that in more ways than one, and he's doing very well, so to speak.
Good. Yes, yes. Well, I wanted to ask about it because I know that you're very dedicated to not just showing appreciation, but showing it from the heart. And especially if there are kind, generous people, I think in the world we live in today, it's worth it to mention it.
Yes, it is.
So
No, it
yes,
is. No, you're
yeah,
right.
good,
You're right.
good. All right. Thank you. We do have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere
I'm here.
because right now we're just going to take a break because we do have a sponsor. So please also take a look, listen to the sponsor, and check them out. And then we will be right back with Richard George.
Thank you.
Welcome to 90210 Enterprise, where your dreams take flight. Join an exclusive community of over 20,000 professionals, unlocking access to world-class business consulting and powerful networking opportunities, with expertise spanning 12 specialized sectors, including network, business and ventures, real estate, finance, and more. Choose from our tailored access plans, corporate access and executive access. Unlock exclusive benefits of corporate and executive access, including a 30-minute orientation with Dr. Natalie Forest, Executive Director of 90210 and President of the Media Vertical, and a 45-minute consultation with Ashkan Tabibnia, Founder and CEO of 90210 Enterprise for Corporate Access members. Executive Access members receive a 30-minute consultation. As a member, you enjoy access to special opportunities to expand your reach, participate, and collaborate with our partners, such as Viran Depeche, and have your message be shared globally. Are you ready to turn your dreams into reality? Join us today and experience the difference. Contact us at 90210enterprise@gmail.com.
And welcome back to your 90210 podcast, where we showcase unique, creative, and diverse youths who are living their legacies. And today we're talking to Richard George. If you missed the first part, go back because he shared a lot of nuggets, not just local and global, but also the art of taking time. And I do have a follow-up question on that because very often you mentioned very well that it's about communication, speaking up, discussing everything, if I understood you correctly. And then you also mentioned, that you like to sometimes go to the stadium 2 hours there, you drive 2 hours, you spend 2 hours, you drive. That's 6 hours. There are probably individuals who are in relationships who have families where the spouse or the kids say, no, no, we want to see you work all day. The weekend should be ours. What are you doing? Do you experience that? And if so, how do you handle that?
It's a very good question. Yes, I do. And I handle it through communication. So we know the fixtures of the football matches that are forthcoming. So I don't wait until the last day and then turn up and say, I'm going to the stadium. I communicate that well in advance. So I get asked sometimes, what are you doing on Saturday, the 16th of February? Oh, let me check. Arsenal is playing a home match. I'll be out there.
Yeah.
And over time, it wasn't easy initially. If it's an important event, I make the sacrifice to show that football is not taking over my social or family lifetime, so quality time with the family. But in most cases, what they do is they reschedule and walk around me, or I walk around them. So that way there is no conflict and we can really be together and enjoy each other's time. And then, of course, when we go away on holidays, what a wonderful time as well. It's an opportune time to have a catch up, have a chat, and just be as normal as we can be, and setting aside time for one another, going out for meals every now and again. So we try as best as we can to go out for a meal at least once every month, on top of everything. And when we use those quality moments to just have a chat and catch up and whatever. But we are always on the get-go anyway. So communication is pretty much rapid. I think this is a very good one for anyone who's listening. We've got what we call a family WhatsApp group. So in the family WhatsApp group, all matters arising and pertaining to the family, technically speaking, are dumped in that group. So it's a quick window of catch up and you know what people are doing and whatever. Coincidentally, my wife and I are the ones who tend to engage the most. And then occasionally the kids jump in and they put something in there. And before you start commenting and getting them to contribute, they're gone. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So they're good. I think that really works. But something else that I believe also works is whilst I'm very much into football, and my wife knows that, she says I watch anything that kicks the leather. So I haven't got taste. I just watch football irrespective, even though I follow Arsenal and all that. But what I've also done consciously, and she appreciates that, is she has her own favorite sitcoms,
Yes, of course.
programs.
Uh-huh.
And therefore, when she is immersed in those soap operas, or I don't interfere and I don't disturb. She gets her space. And to be quite honest, she's even influenced me to begin to follow and enjoy some of those sitcoms like is it CIS?
Yes.
Is it CIS? The all those sort of American themed action movies or serialized programs. She's got me hooked on quite a number of them, and I kind of enjoy them. And then, of course, some of those, I don't know what you call them because I am not into them. They are like variety shows where you talk about American housewives, Texas, Los Angeles housewives, all those kind of stuff. Sometimes I go in and I'm wondering, okay, so what am I watching now? And I'm there looking like a moped, but of course they are enjoying it. They tell me what's happening and all that. And I find it all very surreal that someone can really sit back and enjoy all of this, what I call living a life in the public that is perhaps not grounded in reality and all that.
Yes.
It's all TV shows. But look, she enjoys it. I watch it alongside with her occasionally. And it's all fun, and pizza, popcorn, and drinks and all that can sometimes flow, just giving it a good energy and a family atmosphere. So in a nutshell, I think the key word in all of it is communication and sacrifice.
I would add quality
Yeah.
and respect to it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, because I mean, I know from my life and from what you just said, you know, it's not that you have to sit together and talk for 3 hours. Sometimes 5 minutes are good, and everybody has their space, does their thing, respecting each other's space or their preferences of musical style.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
So tell me a little bit about the Richard George Foundation. You mentioned it is your way of giving back.
That's right.
Does that mean that the Richard George Foundation is you living another aspect of your legacy? And what do you do there?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a non-profit organization approved by the regulatory authorities in Nigeria, and the vision is to raise Africa's change makers, change makers from Africa who have a vision to fulfill that, who have a vision and they want to fulfill that vision. But that is, and our focus or demographics is young talents. And now we have just kind of pivoted to women in entrepreneurship, women in leadership, through entrepreneurship investment, which I'm going to talk to you about, if not through this podcast, but when we switch off the podcast, because I've got some stuff to share with you. But the vision, why is that? It's the umbrella vision, which is quite broad. We decided to analyze it. When I say we, myself and my team, through reflective practices, we asked ourselves some real examination questions. So how do we raise change makers? What should be our focus? And we came up with 3 strategic pillars that drives that particular vision, one of which is skills acquisition and development. It's about acquiring skills that are very relevant, that are employable today, that employers seek, and skills that allows you to make change happen. Change either for economic or financial independence, or change for social impact. That's the first thing. And the second one is education. When we talk about education, we appreciate the formal education. However, the formal education of acquiring certificates is clearly a thing of the past. When we talk about education, we're not talking about education that is purposed on delivering change for humanity in all spheres of human interactions. And in that regards, In our current world, we are now talking about things like environmental protection, living sustainable or sustainability, and looking at what am I engaged in terms of my activities, in terms of my focus, in terms of what I do, and how is that affecting humanity from my immediate local to the global space. And then the third pillar is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, because we were quick to recognize statistically, and it's still there, we've got in Africa 65% of the population by different world organizations or data-led organizations says 65% of the demographics are young people between the ages of 18 and 35. If 65% of Africa's population is in that demographic range, it presents a huge market opportunity.
Yes.
Both for Africa and the developed world. And if you can latch into that market, you're talking about products, you're talking about service, you're talking about customers who can be with you for a long time. And then the other side of it was, if we're looking at entrepreneurship, what is driving that thought process? And what we concluded was, if this demographic, as huge as it is, it's a huge market, it means if you're churning out these people out into the public domain, there are no jobs for them. And now one can argue legitimately, no wonder unemployment is high, because the greatest employer of labor in Africa is the public service, and there's not enough jobs to go around. And the public service does not provide enrichment, does not provide financial freedom or economic injection into humanity. It creates an enabling, and it's designed to create an enabling environment where other agencies, institutions, private sectors, civil society organizations, and diverse stakeholders can take advantage of that enabling environment in order to thrive. And that was why we came up with the entrepreneurship pillar focus. And as it were, we are now fully immersed in that pathway, which means as a reflective exercise, we have now hit key milestones on all the three pillars that we set out to focus on to deliver the vision. So that is where we are. And that's what we stand to do.
Yeah.
And that's what we are doing. And that's what we've been doing for, on the 18th of March, it will be exactly 2 years since we got launched virtually on the 18th of March. And then on the 30th of September 2023, which is still far away from being 2 years, was when we got physically launched in Abuja, Nigeria.
Yes. And so you started, you said earlier local, then go global. So
That's
you're
right.
starting there, you've got the matrix, you
Yeah.
got the parameters, you've got the programs, you have the team, and then you're going to see if you can branch it into neighboring countries and so forth, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Through strategic partnerships with organizations that share our values, that is pretty much aligned to the principles of work or ways of working, and they're willing to imbibe some of the values that we have also created, so we can co-create a journey where we are working. They know their environment, and we will support them similarly when we need them, and they will support us in our environment. And I think the word for that is collaboration. We want to collaborate, we want to coordinate our efforts, and we want to communicate those efforts in order to achieve the vision. And that is where the Africa-centric comes in.
Yes, of course. And final question, because we're running out of time. So your organization is not that old. You're still a baby. You
Yes.
figured that out earlier. The team, because we're talking about a not nonprofit or not for profit.
Not for profit, which
And
is
not-
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, in the US, there's a little bit of a difference. So that's what
Okay.
I'm asking. Okay.
I got it.
So, but you have a team. So that means you have funding already, or do you need more subsidies, funding? when you said, because you said collaboration. So
Yeah.
what are you envisioning? People who provide money, people who live in Nigeria and want to help with the programs. What's that idea?
Good question. That's where we are at now. We need funding. We
Okay.
need funding we're still in a startup phase. We need funding to scale up our operations. We've got the indexes now, or the indicators. We've got the success stories and the testimonials to show we are very disciplined. We've got fiduciary responsibilities. We are very accountable. So we need funding to scale up, because we can now see that we have success stories. So that's one. 85% of the funding of the organization so far has come from Richard George, which is great, but clearly not sustainable,
Right.
if you know what I mean. But we've been quite fortunate with some of our partners who've supported us, and I hope it is not out of place or context if I mention the likes of the Voice Aid Association in Germany,
Yes.
under the leadership of Astrid Ahrens. A Deepesh Africa project, again under the leadership of Astrid Ahrens, and I know you're very involved, Regina Harwich, and Julian Putzing. That organization has been fantastic. The one or two organizations here in the United Kingdom, the IAS, which is Immigration Advisory Service, they have also contributed, and a lot of friends, network of friends, some of my staff here in the UK, especially when we did funding. And then, of course, the Chief Information Officer and the Director General of NITDA in Nigeria was generous enough to donate a sum of 30 million naira in resources and equipment, which we deployed into an institution in Nigeria by way of standing up a digital economy center, which has been approved and is helping the students to gain requisite computing skills and improve their knowledge. So there's a lot of access for all opportunity that we have provided through that particular deployment. So with all of this behind us, we feel we are primed now to want to do more. We want to go far, we want to go better, but we appreciate that we can go fast by going it alone. We don't want to go fast, we want to go far. And there's an African adage that talks about, when you go far, you only achieve going far when you go with others. So if anyone is listening, they can get in touch with your podcast. Through your podcast, they can reach us, or they can reach us directly. We're looking for partners. We can offer an awful lot in terms of access into Nigeria, as well as the African continent. And we just want to touch lives, because the stories we're hearing already are stories that are making a difference.
Yes. And some of them I see sometimes on LinkedIn. So, that's also where people can find you. Every Friday, there's a new post. I've paid attention.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, Richard, it's been a pleasure. And this, of course, we know it's a short podcast where we can only scratch the surface, but you gave us a lot of really good nuggets, especially about the home. How do we manage all that we have to manage? And I'm very impressed that you've been in your job, in your position for almost 30 years. There must be some positive synergy. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stayed that long. And so I want to thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Who knows? Maybe we'll have you back. And anybody who wants to get in touch, of course, you can look at the podcast notes. You can easily find him on all social media as well, him and his foundation. And to everybody who has been watching or listening, I want to thank you for joining us today at the 90210 podcast. And I want to invite you, of course, to subscribe on all the different channels that are available. And please be sure to figure out your legacy, live it today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today in the 90210 Universe, a podcast dedicated to showcasing unique, creative, and diverse humans, who we are, living their legacies, making a difference, and thereby being the change, supporting and inspiring others. Join our universe by subscribing to this podcast, follow us on social media, and contact us to join the 90210 Enterprise community to elevate your life and legacy today.